South Korea and the Philippines forged a strategic partnership and agreed to expand cooperation on defense, economy, and nuclear energy. This as President Yoon held talks with the Philippines President Marcos in Manila. On the one-year anniversary of the unprecedented October 7th attacks, Hamas fires rockets at Tel Aviv while thousands gather at the Nobel Music Festival site for a commemoration. North Korea and China celebrate 75 years of diplomatic relations with some signs of an uncomfortable atmosphere spotted. It's October 7th, 8 p.m. in Seoul. This is Newscenter. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. We start over in Manila, where the presidents of South Korea and the Philippines have pledged a strategic partnership to mark their 75th anniversary of diplomatic ties this year. Our correspondent Kim Do-yeon, who is part of the traveling press poll, files this report.
South Korea and the Philippines are now strategic partners. This as President Yoon Suk-yeol made a state visit hosted by the Philippines President Ferdinand Romualdez Marcos Jr. and held a summit at the Malacanang Palace on Monday.
저는 이번 방문을 통해 필리핀이 마르코스 대통령님의 지도력 하에 역동적으로 발전하고 있으며 양국 관계가 무한한 발전 가능성을 가지고 있음을 확인했습니다. 오늘 저와 마르코스 대통령님은 양국 간 전략적 동반자 관계를 수립하여 한국과 필리핀의 관계에 새로운 장을 열었습니다.
During our fruitful bilateral meetings, President Yoon and I covered several areas of cooperation, including defense and security, maritime cooperation, economic and development cooperation, and people-to-people exchanges. We agreed that we have made significant strides in advancing and deepening our bilateral cooperation towards the attainment of our mutually beneficial goals.
This is the first state visit by a South Korean president in 13 years. The two nations have a deeply rooted bilateral relationship. The Philippines was the fifth nation South Korea established diplomatic relations with, and this year the two nations mark 75th anniversary of the establishment of those ties. The two leaders adopted a joint statement to specify what the new level of relationship will look like. The detailed document listed specific cooperation beginning with political relations to cooperation in security, economy, and civilian exchanges. The two leaders, among many different aspects to a detailed plan of action, highlighted security cooperation amid the two nations needing international support for their current situations. South Korea faces North Korea's provocations. Philippines has been in contention with China over maritime borders. Yoon emphasized solidarity in the rule of international law.
이러한 차원에서 양국은 남중국 해상 규칙에 기반한 해양 질서의 확립과 국제법 원칙에 따른 항행 및 상공 비행의 자유를 위해 계속 협력해 나아가기로 했습니다.
While the Philippines leader acknowledged solidarity against North Korea's provocation and support for Seoul's efforts to denuclearize and make peace on the Korean peninsula.
I welcome the Republic of Korea's efforts to promote peace and stability in the Korean peninsula. The audacious initiative and the August 15 unification doctrine are important efforts in this regard.
In addition, the two leaders agreed to expand the size of joint military exercises, while South Korea's defense industry will support the Philippines' efforts to modernize its military further. Meanwhile, the top office says as South Korea will establish a comprehensive strategic partnership with the ASEAN when Yoon arrives in Laos for a summit in a few days. Elevating the ties with individual members like this is crucial. President Yoon is set to stop by Singapore from Monday to Wednesday before getting to Laos for the summit this week. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News, Manila.
Also in Manila, as indication of their intentions to bolster ties, Seoul and Manila have sealed a number of MOUs to advance infrastructure projects, critical mineral procurement, and more. Our senior correspondent Oh Soo-young has the details.
South Korea and the Philippines inked deals to cooperate on national infrastructure, critical mineral supply chains, and possibly nuclear energy as the two countries upgraded their relations to a strategic partnership. During President Yoon Suk-yeol's state visit to the Philippines, 20 memorandums of understanding were signed between the two countries' governments and businesses on Monday, enhancing their trade ties to a sustainable win-win relationship. As the two governments agreed on South Korean firms participating in major infrastructure projects, including a highway in the Laguna Lake area and an offshore bridge, Seoul will provide low-interest loans to the Philippines to help facilitate the projects under the Economic Cooperation Development Fund.
이 두 사업은 지원 규모가 각각 10억 불 상당으로 대외경제협력기금 EDCF 사업 기준 역대 1, 2위의 대형 개발 협력 사업이며 한국 기업들이 중추적인 역할을 할 것입니다. 아울러 양국은 필리핀이 추진 중인 여러 인프라 사업에 세계적인 경험과 역량을 갖춘 한국 기업들의 참여를 확대해 나아가기로 했습니다.
South Korea will also grant further loans to resume the second phase of a highway construction project. Additionally, Seoul and Manila's trade ministry signed an MOU to ramp up cooperation on procuring critical minerals. The two sides will strengthen information exchange on key material investments and provide mutual support in the case of supply chain disruptions, as well as expand joint research and development for mining and refining. As of 2023, the Philippines is the world's sixth largest producer of nickel and cobalt, key materials that power all things digital and future-oriented industries. Nuclear power cooperation is also on the cards, as Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power will conduct a feasibility study to resume the construction of Bataan nuclear power plant, which has been stalled since 1986. The two sides will also seek to foster a production complex for Korean agricultural machinery to help the Philippines ramp up food security. At a business forum on Monday afternoon, some 300 corporate leaders and government officials participated, including the chiefs of Samsung Korean Air and Hana Aerospace, along with Presidents Yoon and Ferdinand Marcos Jr., with 13 business MOUs signed to promote airline cooperation, smart city development, energy production, and military equipment exports to the Philippines. Such deals follow the two countries' free trade agreement signed in Jakarta last year, which will remove Philippine tariffs on 96.5% of goods from South Korea and Korean tariffs on 94.8% of Philippine products. The FTA will take effect after it is ratified by the South Korean National Assembly. Oseong, Arirang News.
Today, October 7th, marks the one-year anniversary of Hamas's unprecedented attack on Israel. On this day, Hamas launched rockets towards Tel Aviv while memorials were held in Israel to remember the victims of the attack. Choi Min-jung brings the latest.
Rockets fired from Gaza set off sirens in Tel Aviv on Monday as Israel marked the one-year anniversary of the Hamas October 7th attack. The Israeli military said Hamas fired rockets at central Israel from the Gaza Strip. The Jerusalem Post reported that a few people had been lightly wounded. The attack was anticipated as the Israeli military had the day before warned that Hamas would likely carry out an attack on the anniversary of the massacre. Earlier at dawn, hundreds of family and friends of the victims gathered at the site of the Nobel music festival a year ago to honor those killed. The last song that had played during Hamas's surprise attack was played once again. People lit candles and cried helplessly, thinking of their loved ones. The commemoration was joined by Israeli President Isaac Herzog, who said the October 7th attack has left a scar on humanity. Last year on October 7th, the festival turned into a bloodbath after Hamas gunmen killed more than 370 people. Many others were taken hostage, with dozens still in captivity.
We lost our son here. He was at the party. We came to visit him after 1 year passed, which is amazing. We don't know. It seems to be like yesterday was the last day we saw him.
Israelis also took to the streets demanding the return of the hostages.
We came here this morning 365 days since October 7, 2023, because this is the place, the hostage square, the place to be and pray to bring back all the 101 people that are still in hostage in Gaza.
The war has also sparked worldwide protests, prompting tens of thousands of people to take to the streets to call for an end to bloodshed in Gaza and the Middle East as a whole. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
In related news, we take a look at where things stand now in Gaza and where to go from here at a moment where regional conflict only expands with its end barely in sight. Kim Bo-kyung has this report.
Over 40,000 deaths and 90% of the Gaza population, amounting to 1.9 million displaced. These are the numbers that are left from the war, with it already being 1 year since the Palestinian militant group Hamas launched an unprecedented attack on Israel from the Gaza Strip. Though devastating it had been throughout the year, experts say there were key dates of the conflict this year that made this war spill into neighboring Lebanon. In May this year, U.S. President Joe Biden called on Hamas to accept a ceasefire proposal of 3 phases, backed by other countries such as Qatar and Egypt. In July, however, as Fuad Shukr, known to have been the right-hand man of Hezbollah Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah, got killed in an Israeli airstrike, and the head of the political bureau of Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh, died after having attended the swearing-in of Iranian president, ceasefire talks lost momentum. In September, Israel confirmed the deaths of 6 hostages found in the tunnel complex under Gaza, sparking protests across Israel with anger directed at Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his cabinet for failing to secure a hostage deal. One expert says this, in part, led to Netanyahu reaffirming his will to wipe out Hamas and weaken Hezbollah for the sake of his political career and to end the war.
Ever since the war began on October 7th, Israel's 2 goals were to wipe out Hamas and save hostages. And for that, it is necessary to target Hezbollah to some extent, as they have helped Hamas to have force. That is why military operations are currently being carried out in southern Lebanon, aimed at weakening Hezbollah.
Given that Israel targeted Hamas and Hezbollah are Iran-backed, concerns are mounting about whether the conflict would lead to a full-fledged war between Israel and Iran. Experts say Iran would not be willing to engage in an all-out war, as it does not have the capability to do so, making it Israel's call.
Israel is expected to retaliate. The intensity of it and to what extent Iran can withstand would be a critical factor. This period of time, right until the US presidential election, is the optimal period for Israel, as once the elections are over and a new president is elected, there may be more pressure against Israel, limiting its room to maneuver.
Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
North Korea and China marked their 75th anniversary of diplomatic relations with pledges to bolster bilateral ties. However, there seems to be a subtle but tangible discrepancy in the tone of their respective messages shared by their top diplomats. Our correspondent Kim Jong-sil explains.
The foreign ministers of China and North Korea sent each other what appeared to be follow-up messages to those delivered by their leaders on Sunday, commemorating the 75th year since the establishment of diplomatic relations between Beijing and Pyongyang. The Korean Central News Agency reported on Monday that Foreign Minister Choi Sun-hee sent a congratulatory message to her Chinese counterpart Wang Yi to mark the occasion. Choi highlighted the close political, economic, and cultural cooperation between Pyongyang and Beijing over the past 75 years. She also emphasized that despite the complex and multifaceted current international landscape, strengthening the North Korea-China friendship and advancing the socialist cause remains a crucial task for both sides. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi responded by saying that the bilateral relationship has entered a new historical phase under the leadership of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and Chinese President Xi Jinping. Wang added that safeguarding and developing the relationship is a steadfast priority for Beijing. Professor Park Won-gon of Ewha Women's University noted the differences in the tone of the messages.
In this message, and Choi Sun-hee has implicitly mentioning about to cooperate with China to counter the United States, but China, they haven't mentioned it at all. They are very pretty much focused on the bilateral relationship between China and North Korea. So in this short message, we can still see some different worldview that are represented by both countries.
The KCNA earlier reported congratulatory messages exchanged between Kim and Xi, although there haven't been any signs of large-scale celebrations or exchanges.
They haven't mentioned about any kind of summit between Xi Jinping and Kim Jong-un at all. This is one of the signs or evidence that the uncomfortability between these two countries.
As the 75th anniversary of diplomatic relations unfolds, the dynamics between China and North Korea is something for Seoul to monitor closely. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
This year's Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine was awarded to American scientists Victor Ambros and Gary Ruvkun. The Nobel Assembly at the Karolinska Institute in Stockholm announced that the prize went to the two for the discovery of microRNA and its role in post-transcriptional gene regulation. Simply put, they were honored for their discovery of a fundamental principle governing how gene activity is regulated. The rest of the 2024 Nobel Prizes will be announced throughout the week. On the national front, regulators in Korea are reportedly looking into the Chinese video sharing platform TikTok for potential infringements on rules related to personal data and information. Cha Eun-kyung has more.
The short-form video platform service TikTok is owned by Chinese company ByteDance. In order to create an account on TikTok, it is required to agree to its personal information policy, which automatically sends users advertisements instead of letting them opt out of this under the Information Network law. The Korea Communications Commission is set to look into TikTok over this potential violation of the law. An official from the KCC has announced that the agency detected a problem in TikTok's personal information policy and will take measures after investigating the matter. Under the law, service platforms must allow users to decide whether they will receive marketing content and get clear consent from users in advance to send this out. Otherwise, platform companies can be subject to a fine of up to 30 million won or just over $22,000. The Personal Information Protection Commission is also investigating TikTok's alleged violation of the Personal Data Protection Law. TikTok has also been criticized for not sharing the full content of its terms of service and privacy policy with its users when they join the platform. Cha Eun-kyung, Arirang News.
In the city of Suwon, Gyeonggi-do Province, an annual festival was held at its historical Hwaseong Fortress this past weekend to celebrate Joseon-era culture. Our An Song-jin was there.
Where the past meets the present. The Suwon Hwaseong Cultural Festival is an annual festival held around Suwon Hwaseong Fortress, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It was constructed by King Jongjo, the 22nd king of the Joseon dynasty, to guard the tomb of his father. The festival aims to connect the traces of the Joseon dynasty and the filial piety of King Jongjo through various activities, including storytelling performances.
I got to know about why King Jongjo constructed this fortress, and the storytelling performance taught us about the royal kitchen and the banquets.
One of the programs offers a royal gourmet experience and a chance to make and taste the traditional Korean desserts that King Jongjo enjoyed, such as tashik, a cookie made by kneading grain powder with honey.
First, I was really impressed with the story about the king and how his father was dead. So I was really interested and also the dessert for me was very special. How delicate they made it, even though.
The festival combines performances such as traditional Korean opera, theatrical storytelling, and the highlight of the festival, King Jongjo's Royal Parade, which starts in Seoul and ends at Hwaseong Fortress. The 50-kilometer walk spans across 6 cities and seeks to remember Jongjo's thoughts for his people and ambition to strengthen the country. Through these reenactments and interpretations of the past, the festival looks to bring the fortress to life.
King Jongjo had dreamt of a global city, and through this global cultural festival, we look to move forward as an international city, a city that embodies the various stories King Jongjo and the history holds.
Alongside the festival, a media art performance is showcased under the theme King Cheongjo's Dream Comes Back to Life in Lights. Though the Suwon Hwaseong Cultural Festival only lasts for 3 days, the National Heritage Media Art will be on display until October 20th, giving a modern twist to the historical heritage. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Time now to take a look at what's been happening in the world of sports. Joining us in the studio is our sports editor, Paul Need. Hello, Paul.
Evening.
Let's start with football. The South Korean national team is in action later this week, but will be without its captain. What can you tell us?
Yes, that's right. Son Heung-min has been forced to withdraw from the squad due to a hamstring injury. The news broke on Friday that Son will not be fit enough to play Korea's next 2 games, and that Hong Hyun-sok will be called up instead. Now, Hong is a central midfielder and can't really be seen as a direct replacement. There are perhaps a handful of candidates to fill in on that left-hand side, namely Hwang Hee-chan, Bae Juno and Lee Jae-sung. Most of the domestic-based players departed for Jordan on Monday morning ahead of Thursday's match. The overseas-based players made their own way there. Korea faced Jordan at 11 p.m. on Thursday before facing Iraq in Yongin on Tuesday at 8 p.m.
Some important games coming up. And 2 of Korea's players registered goal over the weekend.
Yes, that's right, including a first Feyenoord goal for Hwang In-bom. Hwang played just over an hour as the holding midfielder in a 4-1-2-3, but popped up at the edge of the box in the 43rd minute to make it 2-0 with a well-placed shot into the bottom corner. Feyenoord went on to beat Twente 2-1. The midfielder moved to the Dutch Giants in early September and so far has made 5 appearances for the club in all competitions. Meanwhile, Kim Min-jae scored his first goal of the season, giving Bayern Munich the lead in an eventual 3-3 draw with Eintracht Frankfurt. Bayern remain unbeaten with 4 wins and 2 draws and sit top of the table on goal difference.
And moving on to baseball, the KBO postseason is well underway now. How are the semi-playoffs going?
At the moment, it's currently tied with 1 game each between KT Wiz and the LG Twins. KT, though, they won the first game 3-2 on Saturday, but then the LG Twins roared back with a 7-2 win on Sunday in front of a sellout crowd of over 23,000. Infielder Shin Min-jae posted 3 runs for the LG Twins, while starting pitcher Im Chan-gyu was on the mound for 5 innings and a third, the longest postseason outing of his career, and also earning his 2nd postseason win. The Wiz, though, became the first team to finish 5th and win the wildcard series, beating the Doosan Bears. This after beating the SSG Landers in a first ever tiebreaker. Game 3 of the semi-playoff is coming up on a Tuesday in Suwon at 6:30 p.m.
All right, and finally to women's volleyball. The new season is just around the corner.
It is, and the Kovo Cup wrapped up over the weekend. Now, Suwon Hyundai Engineering Construction Hill State defeated the Daejeon Jeongwanjang Red Sparks 3-1 in Sunday's final. Leitita Moma Basoka was Hill State's key player, scoring 19 points. This is Hill State's 5th Kovo Cup title. The competition acts as a curtain raiser of sorts before the league campaign begins. All 7 teams take part, and on occasion, a team from overseas is invited. This year, Japan's prestige international Aran Mare took part, but they failed to make it to the knockouts. The new league season begins on October the 19th.
All right, thanks, Paul. I'll see you next week.
Thank you. See you.
Sporadic rain is falling in some areas due to the influence of Typhoon Kraton. With cool autumn weather continuing in central areas such as Seoul today, rain continues in the southern part of the country and on Jeju Island. Tomorrow there will be up to 30 millimeters of rain in eastern parts of Gangwon-do province and 5 to 10 in the Gyeongsang-do province and Jeju Island. Typical autumn weather with a large daily temperature difference. It's going to be cool in the middle of the day tomorrow. Temperatures will continue to be similar to the average for this time of year, and the weather will stay cool throughout the week. Tomorrow morning will start at 13 degrees in Seoul and Daejeon, Gwangju, Daegu, and Gyeongju 14 degrees. Daily highs will move up to 24 in Seoul, Daejeon, and Daegu, Busan 25 degrees. On Wednesday, it will be sunny in inland areas, but rain will continue on Jeju Island and in eastern parts of Gangwon-do province. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
And that is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session coming up.